Welcome back to the Mad Genius Thesis, the show where we kind of dig into this whole idea of whether there's a connection between like creative brilliance and mental illness.
Right.
And today, we're going to be talking about Frida Kahlo.
Ah, Frida.
So to kick things off, I found this line in Hayden Herrera's biography of Frida,
Okay.
and it really kind of just grabbed me.
Mm.
Frida wrote to a friend, and this is what she said, and it was about her relationship with Diego Rivera.
Okay.
She said, "I am not sick.
Oh, wow.
I am broken. But I am happy as long as I can paint."
That's just such a powerful statement.
It is.
And it really speaks to how she used art as a way to kind of process both physical and emotional pain. And it also, I think, hints at how complex her personality was, someone who can find joy in creating something even while going through such intense suffering.
Yeah, for sure.
So does this support the Mad Genius Thesis? Or does it complicate it?
Well, let's start by unpacking Frida's early life. I mean, she was born in 1907 in Mexico City, a time and a place that was, but just brimming with political and artistic change.
Yeah, and it's important to remember this context, The Mexican Revolution was still pretty fresh in people's minds, and there was this growing movement to embrace indigenous culture, and they wanted to challenge European artistic traditions.
Right.
This backdrop really influenced Frida's artistic development.
And then when she's just 18 years old, she experiences this horrible bus accident.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just imagine a metal rod impaling you, multiple fractures, a crushed pelvis.
It's hard to even think about.
It is. And the details in Herrera's book are, they're really tough to read.
Yeah.
It's a turning point in her life.
Definitely.
I mean, both literally and figuratively.
Right.
Confined to her bed for months.
Hmm.
Frida begins to paint.
Yeah.
It's almost as if the accident forces her to confront her own mortality.
Right.
Her own body in a way that most people never have to. And I was struck by how Herrera includes Frida's letters from this period, especially the ones she wrote to her boyfriend, Alejandro.
Oh, yeah.
They're full of witty observations. She complains about being bored.
Makes sense.
And there's this almost morbid sense of humor.
Huh. Interesting.
She even jokes about the corset she has to wear, calling it her Iron Maiden.
Wow.
That dark humor, it's a recurring theme in Frida's life and art.
Yeah.
It's like a coping mechanism. A way to deflect the pain, but also to connect with other people.
Right.
And you can even see this duality in her early self-portraits.
Yeah.
There's vulnerability, but there's also defiance.
Definitely a mix of both.
Which brings us to this other major force in Frida's life, Diego Rivera.
Oh, yeah.
They meet in 1928, get married just a year later.
Wow.
And their relationship, it becomes this legendary whirlwind of love, mentorship, betrayal.
Of course.
And this artistic collaboration.
It's important not to romanticize the relationship, though.
Right.
There was a 20-year age gap between them. Yeah.
Diego was a notorious womanizer.
Right.
And Frida herself had relationships with women.
Yeah.
He was passionate, for sure, but also tumultuous.
Yeah.
And it clearly had an influence on both their lives and their art.
Herrera does such a great job of showing the power dynamics between them.
Yeah. How so?
Well, Diego, he was already this established muralist.
Right.
He becomes Frida's mentor, encouraging her talent and introducing her to the art world.
But Frida, she wasn't just going to follow along.
No, definitely not.
She was ambitious.
Oh, yeah.
Fiercely independent.
And determined to forge her own path.
And you can see this in her early painting.
How so?
Well, they show a clear influence from Diego's style.
Oh, okay.
The bold lines, the social realism.
Right.
But you can already see Frida developing her own unique voice, this raw, really visceral style that would become like her trademark.
There's one painting that really struck me, and it's The Bus from 1929.
Oh, yeah, I love that one. It's almost like a miniature mural, depicting a cross-section of Mexican society crammed onto a bus.
You've got the businessman in his suit, the mother with her baby, an indigenous woman carrying a basket of goods.
It's commentary on social class, on everyday life in Mexico City at that time.
What's fascinating is how Frida puts herself in this scene as an observer. Almost detached, but still clearly affected by what she's seeing.
Right.
It kind of foreshadows her later work.
In what way?
Well, where she becomes both the subject and the observer,
right,
exploring her inner world, but through this lens of social and political awareness.
And then there's those self-portraits.
Oh, yeah.
They become increasingly unflinching as she matures as an artist.
How so?
Well, You see the 1930 portrait. It's melancholic, introspective.
Okay.
But by 1932, she paints remembrance of an open wound,
Oh, wow.
where she depicts herself nude from the waist down,
Right.
legs spread apart with this gaping wound on her thigh.
That's a really powerful and unsettling image.
It is.
That blood dripping onto her white petticoat, it's almost shocking.
Yeah.
It speaks to Frida's willingness to confront her own pain, her own sexuality, in a way that was incredibly bold for that time.
Right.
Do you see this as a direct response to the trauma of the accident, or is there something more going on?
I think it's a combination of factors.
Yeah.
The accident clearly forced her to confront her own vulnerability, her physical vulnerability.
Yeah.
But it also seems like she's reclaiming her body, her sexuality through her art.
Right.
And this is where the relationship with Diego gets even more intriguing.
How so?
Well, his infidelity was a constant source of pain for Frida.
Yeah.
Herrera even quotes Diego as telling a friend, almost casually,
Oh, God.
"You know Frida's homosexual, don't you?"
Wow.
It's a revealing look into their unconventional arrangement.
And how did Frida deal with this?
Well, she channeled this turmoil directly into her art. She painted Henry Ford Hospital after a miscarriage, depicting herself lying naked on a hospital bed, surrounded by all these symbolic objects representing her loss and pain.
It's so raw.
It is.
So vulnerable.
It's incredibly powerful.
It really makes you wonder, was the emotional roller coaster of their relationship a hindrance to her mental well-being?
Right.
Or did it fuel her creativity?
It's such a complex question,
It is.
and one that I think we're going to continue to explore as we go deeper into Frida's life and art.
Yeah, definitely.
So we were talking about Frida channeling all that emotional turmoil of her relationship with Diego into her art.
Yeah, and it's a thread that runs through like her entire career, you know? Even as she's gaining recognition on her own, her personal life, it's still this source of both inspiration and anguish for her.
It really is. It's almost as if her art becomes this dialogue between her inner and outer worlds, you know, with her personal struggles kind of playing out against the backdrop of Mexican society and global politics.
Oh, that's interesting. And speaking of politics, this is when Frida's involvement with the Mexican Communist Party starts to become more prominent. Herrera talks about how she would attend meetings, and she even hosted gatherings of artists and intellectuals.
Wow.
And she even had this brief affair with Leon Trotsky.
Wait, hold on. She had an affair with Trotsky. I totally missed that when I first read the biography.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild detail. It really shows Frida's rebellious spirit and her willingness to push boundaries, you know?
Yeah.
But it also highlights the complexities of her relationship with Diego.
How so?
Well, here he is, sheltering Trotsky, who was a political rival.
Right.
And then his wife gets romantically involved with him.
That's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it's definitely some serious drama.
So how did Diego react to this? I mean, he was known for being jealous, even possessive.
Yeah.
Does Herrera say anything about how he handled this?
She doesn't really go into detail about his reaction, but it's safe to say that it probably wasn't a happy time in their marriage.
Right.
And you have to remember, this is also when Frida's health is declining.
Oh, right.
She's undergoing all these surgeries, dealing with chronic pain and becoming more dependent on medication.
So you've got this convergence of physical pain, emotional turmoil, and political upheaval.
Right.
It's a lot for anyone to deal with,
It really is.
especially for someone who's pouring all of that into their art.
Absolutely. And yet, this is also when Frida starts to gain international recognition.
Wow.
Her first solo exhibition in New York in 1938.
Yeah.
It's a huge success.
That's amazing.
And she even travels to Paris, where she meets Picasso and a bunch of other surrealist artists.
And she rejected the surrealist label, right?
She did. She famously said, "They thought I was a surrealist, but I wasn't. I never painted dreams. I painted my own reality."
That's an important distinction.
That is. While her work might share some elements with surrealism, like the dreamlike imagery,
Right.
the exploration of the subconscious, Frida was always rooted in her own experiences, her own pain, and her identity as a Mexican woman.
Right.
And that's what makes her art so powerful, you
Yeah.
know? It's both deeply personal and universally relatable.
There's one painting from this period that I think really shows this, and that's The Two Fridas from 1939.
Oh, yeah.
You see these two versions of Frida side by side, holding hands.
Right. One is dressed in a traditional Tijuana dress representing her Mexican heritage.
Yep.
And the other one is wearing a Victorian gown symbolizing European influence.
Exactly. And they're connected by this exposed artery with blood flowing between them.
It's a powerful metaphor for the duality of her identity,
Yeah.
the conflicting forces within her,
Wow.
and maybe even the tension between her Mexican and European influences.
I'm also struck by how Frida uses her art to challenge traditional ideas of beauty.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm.
She doesn't shy away from depicting her physical imperfections.
Like her scars,
Yeah.
her body hair.
She actually emphasizes them.
Yeah.
It's like she's saying, this is me, take it or leave it.
It's a radical act of self-acceptance.
Totally, especially for that time period.
Right.
It reminds us that beauty can be found in the unconventional, the imperfect, the real.
And Frida, she wasn't interested in conforming to what society expected of her.
No way!
She was determined to create her own path.
As an artist.
And as a woman.
And that path leads her back to Diego, right?
Yeah, they actually remarry in 1940.
Wow.
Despite all the drama and heartbreak of their first marriage.
It's a testament to how complex their relationship was, the undeniable pull they had on each other.
Right.
But as you might expect, the second marriage was just as tumultuous as the first.
Of course.
The affairs continued.
Yeah.
The arguments escalated.
And Frida's health continues to decline.
It's just a lot.
But through it all, her art never falters.
Right.
She keeps painting, experimenting, pushing boundaries.
And there's one painting that really stands out from this period, I think.
Which one?
It's The Broken Column from 1944.
Oh, yeah?
It's this haunting and visceral self-portrait.
It is.
Frida depicts herself naked. Her body is literally split open,
Oh, wow.
revealing a broken column in place of her spine.
It's a pretty intense image.
It is. There are nails piercing her flesh and tears streaming down her face.
It's such a raw and unflinching depiction of physical pain.
It is both literal and metaphorical.
It's hard to imagine the strength it took to create a work like that.
I know.
To confront her own suffering so directly.
And yet there's also this sense of resilience,
Yeah.
a refusal to be defeated.
Yeah.
The look on her face, it's not one of despair.
No.
It's defiance.
It speaks to the power of art as this coping mechanism.
Yeah.
A way to transform pain into something tangible.
Something beautiful, something that can connect with other people.
Frida's art is really a testament to the human capacity for resilience,
It is.
for finding meaning and purpose even when facing unimaginable suffering.
And that brings us to the last chapter of Frida's life,
The 1950s.
right? When her health takes a turn for the worse,
Right.
leading to a leg amputation and constant pain.
But even as her body is failing her,
Yeah.
her spirit, it remains indomitable.
It's just incredible, her willpower.
It is.
Her later works, they're filled with symbolism, exploring themes of life and death,
Yeah.
pain and resilience, and this deep connection to nature.
She just keeps painting until the very end,
You know?
even when she can barely hold a brush.
So as we enter this final stage of Frida's journey, the question remains.
The question we posed at the beginning of this episode
Right.
was her artistic genius fueled by her suffering? Or would she have been the same extraordinary artist without all the physical and emotional challenges she endured?
Let's delve into those final years and see what we can find.
Okay.
I think there's still so much to uncover in Frida Kahlo's life and work.
So we've been exploring the life of Frida Kahlo, a woman who faced, just immense physical and emotional challenges, and yet her creative spirit never seemed to waver.
It's almost like her art, it became a lifeline during those final years.
Yeah.
A way to cope with her own mortality, to find beauty in the midst of all the pain.
I think so. And Herrera's biography really gives us a clear picture of Frida during this time. She's bedridden for long periods,
Right.
undergoing multiple surgeries, battling constant pain,
Yeah.
and yet she's still teaching, mentoring a group of young artists.
Oh, wow.
They were known as Los Fridos,
Interesting.
and surrounding herself with friends and family.
There's just this incredible resilience that shines through,
Well,
even as her body is failing her.
Yeah.
She refused to be defined by her suffering.
Yeah, she was strong.
She was still throwing parties, dressing in that flamboyant way,
Right.
and engaging in political activism.
She even attended a demonstration against U.S. intervention in Guatemala
Yeah, in 1954.
just weeks before her death.
It's incredible.
I mean, that image of her being carried through the crowd in her four-poster bed,
Oh, yeah.
it's so iconic.
It
It
is.
really speaks volumes about her spirit, her refusal to be silenced.
Even when she was in so much pain.
It's a powerful reminder that creativity can still flourish,
Yeah,
even in the most difficult circumstances.
absolutely. And Frida's art from this time reflects this. There's this shift towards introspection, a focus on life and death,
Okay.
and a really deep connection to nature.
There's one painting that really stands out to me, and it's called Still Life with Parrot and Flag from 1951.
Oh, yeah. What about it?
You see these vibrant fruits and flowers,
Yeah.
symbols of life and abundance.
Right.
But then they're juxtaposed with a Mexican flag and a parrot,
Yep.
representing freedom and national identity.
Oh, I see.
And then there are these roots that seem to grow out of Frida's own body, connecting her to the earth.
To her heritage.
It's such a beautiful and poignant image.
It is. There's this sense of longing there,
Yeah.
wanting to hold on to life, to beauty, even as her own world is shrinking.
And the way she includes those roots.
It's like she's drawing strengths from the earth itself, from her Mexican identity.
And that connection to her heritage, it becomes even more prominent in her later works.
Right.
She really embraces traditional Mexican imagery, clothing, and symbolism.
Like she's reaffirming her identity in the face of her own mortality.
It's a reminder that our creative expression is often tied to our sense of self, our culture, and our experiences.
Definitely. And for Frida, her Mexican identity was a source of strength and resilience throughout her life.
So as we get to the end of Frida Kahlo's story, the question we asked at the beginning of this episode remains: was her artistic genius fueled by her suffering?
Right.
Or would she have been the same extraordinary artist even without all the physical and emotional challenges she had to endure?
It's tough to say for sure. I mean, there's no doubt that her experiences with pain and loss and betrayal really informed her art.
Right.
It's right there in her subject matter, her symbolism, her raw emotional honesty.
Yeah.
But to just reduce her to a mad genius, a
Yeah.
product of her suffering, I think that would be a disservice to her,
Right.
to the complexity of her life and art.
Frida was so much more than just her pain.
Exactly.
She was a brilliant artist, a passionate lover, a fierce advocate for social justice,
She really was.
a woman who embraced life with all of its, complexities and contradictions.
I think what makes Frida so compelling is that she just refused to be categorized, to fit into any neat little boxes.
Yeah.
She was a force of nature, a woman who lived life on her own terms.
And her art shows that.
It does. It's messy, it's passionate, it's challenging, and it's ultimately life-affirming.
And I think that's a really valuable takeaway for everyone, no matter what struggles we're facing.
Yeah.
Frida's story reminds us that creativity can come from even the darkest of places.
Right.
That beauty can be found even in the middle of pain.
Yeah.
And that the human spirit is capable of just incredible resilience.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And it's a fitting tribute to Frida Kahlo.
Yeah.
Her life and work, it continues to inspire us to embrace our own complexities,
Yeah.
to find beauty in the unconventional, and to never stop creating, even when we're facing adversity.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the life and work of Frida Kahlo.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We hope this episode has given you a new way to think about the connection between creativity and mental illness. And as always, we encourage you to keep exploring, to keep asking questions, and to find inspiration in the stories of those who dared to live and create on their own terms.
Until next time.
Keep the conversation going.